Exposed, 6 bone-chilling true horror stories of sinister sects, mysterious deaths, and eerie secrets. Maplewood was quaint. The kind of place with charming picket fences and friendly neighbors who waved as you walked by. But beneath its surface lay untold horrors, whispered in tight circles. The Johnson family, hoping for a fresh start, pulled into the driveway of their new home, a sprawling Victorian house draped in creeping ivy and ominous tales. Sarah, their adventurous high school daughter, eyed the house with equal parts excitement and dread, while her parents, Tom and Linda, exchanged apprehensive glances. Had they really traded their struggle for a slice of suburban paradise, or had they just stepped into a nightmare? The locals spoke in hushed tones of the baleful sect, a secretive group whose roots snaked through the town's history like twisted branches. They congregated at the stroke of midnight, performing rituals that sent shivers through the bravest souls. Just old wives' tales, Tom shrugged, but a chill ran down his spine nonetheless. Sarah shrugged off her parents' worries. She was determined to make friends at the local high school, to weave herself into the fabric of Maplewood, even if it meant confronting its buried secrets. Her curiosity led her to the attic of their new home one foggy afternoon. There, among moth-eaten boxes and spider webs, she discovered a hidden journal. It lay weathered and cracked, filled with frantic scripts, warning of people, neighbors who had vanished without a trace. Every word was steeped in fear, warning against the sect and its insatiable thirst for power. Heart racing, she shared her discovery with her classmates. Instead of conversation, she faced eerie silence, like a room that had gone cold. What held them back? Was it fear of the sect lurking just outside their windows? As dusk turned to night, odd things began to unfold. Flickering lights and whispers echoed through the hallways. Each night, Sarah felt an icy breath at her neck, a gnawing sensation that gnawed at her sanity. Shadowy figures danced on the edges of her vision. Her mother, Linda, once the family's rock, trembled with confusion, lost in something she couldn't grasp. Meanwhile, Tom clung to his just ignore it mantra, but the tension thickened like fog. Amid their unraveling, the town took notice. Friends turned to strangers, leaving cracks in once unbreakable bonds. Town meetings devolved into chaos. Are we protecting our way of life or letting fear drive us apart? A neighbor howled, the waver in their voice tinged with desperation. With every unsettling event, the cracks in the walls whispering secrets, the echo of heartbeats in the silence. Sarah recognized they were being drawn into a festering void. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Driven by her thirst for truth, Sarah peeled back layers, connecting dots between her family's ancestry and the lore that enveloped Maplewood. Fear tightened in her throat as she pieced together the connections. The last ritual coinciding with their move wasn't a mere coincidence, it was a demand for something she could sense but not yet understand. What she found would either unite the fractured community against the dark forces creeping in or shatter everything they held dear. The night was closing in on the Johnson household, shadows deepening as the echoes of screams pieced through the walls. Sarah could feel it, a reckoning awaited. Would she uncover the truth in time? Or would the tendrils of the baleful sect snare them all before dawn broke? The clock ticked, the air thickened. Only one thing was certain: their lives would never be the same again. As night wrapped Maplewood in its suffocating embrace, Sarah felt a pull like a gravitational force, drawing her deeper into the skeleton of her new home. Shadows stretched along the walls, whispering in a language she couldn't comprehend, almost as if the house itself was alive, breathing in sync with her pounding heart. Her pulse quickened, each thud hammering against her ribcage. Was today the day she would finally unveil the truth? With determination etched in her brow, she descended the staircase, the wooden steps creaking as if pleading with her to stop. Sarah moved toward the living room, its heavy air thick with anticipation and dread. "Mom," Dad? She called, but the silence was relentless. The warmth of family had vanished, replaced by a chilling absence that settled like dust. A flicker of the overhead lamp caught her eye, startling her. It buzzed angrily, fighting to stay lit. "Let us go find them," she muttered under her breath, trying to summon bravery. She stepped into the darkened hallway, her senses sharpening. The shadows leaped and lurked, breaking apart only to regroup around her. Every half-step forward felt like pushing against quicksand, and then she heard it, a soft, low murmur that rose and fell like a sinister lullaby. It threaded through the air, a voice so familiar yet chillingly distant. "Sarah!" The call came again, warping and twisting, echoing around her ears. Was it her imagination playing tricks? Or was it the hidden forces of that terrible sect, determined to confront the source? Sarah pushed forward, her feet guiding her toward the basement door. It loomed before her like an unwelcoming gate, but a pull she couldn't explain urged her onward. With a trembling hand, she grasped the cold metal doorknob, feeling every rivet beneath her fingers as she twisted and pulled. The door swung open with a groan, revealing an inky staircase that descended into shadows. Her breath hitched, fear clawing at her throat as she called out once more, "Mom? Dad?" Silence hung like a thick fog, suffocating. Taking a breath to steady herself, Sarah ventured down into the stifling dark, the light from above fading with each step. The musty smell of earth and neglect enveloped her, and a cold draft brushed past her like a ghost. She shivered, fighting the urge to turn back, but then a faint glow flickered in the distance. Was it light, or just a trick of the mind? Even though every instinct screamed for her to flee, Sarah pressed on, her heart racing with a mix of terror and adrenaline. As she neared the source, she peered around the corner, eyes widening at the sight before her. In the hollow chamber at the bottom of the stairs, a circle of candles flickered, casting ominous shadows on the stone walls. At the center, an elaborate altar was draped in crimson cloth, bizarre symbols etched into the surface. But it was the figures clad in dark cloaks that paralyzed her. The baleful sect was real, and they were gathered, chanting in unison, their voices rising in a disturbing harmony. Sarah's gut twisted. They had the power to unravel the very fabric of her life, and with a sickening realization, she understood, she was not merely an observer. The air crackled with energy directed toward her, a sensation that felt like tendrils probing at her sanity. Her instincts screamed to retreat, but the very ground felt like it was pulling her in. Just then, she noticed something on the altar. Lay a photograph. It was worn and faded but unmistakably showed her family, Tom and Linda, smiling ignorantly, nestled within the music of dark intent. "What have they done to her?" Sarah gasped, staring at the photo as horror washed over her. The chanting grew louder, drowning out her thoughts as she understood, she had to act, and fast, but as she turned to flee, the shadows coalesced, blocking her exit. Panic surged within her, and in that moment, she knew there was no escape without confronting the truth. "Help!" she screamed, desperation choking her as the chanting intensified. The realization struck her like lightning, if she didn't break their power, they would consume everything she held dear. The altar beckoned with unspeakable promises and dark magic, and as she darted toward it, a voice echoed in her mind, "This is just the beginning." Would she find a way to unravel the clan's dark plot, or would she be ensnared in their twisted fate forever? The clock of reckoning was ticking down to a new horrific dawn. The moment Sarah dashed toward the altar, time itself seemed to stretch and warp. The warm glow of the candles flickered wildly, casting grotesque silhouettes that danced eerily on the walls. Each step she took felt treacherous, as if the shadows beneath her feet could swallow her whole. With enough resolve to shake her fear, she lunged forward, hoping to disrupt whatever dark ritual they were plotting. "Stop!" she cried, her voice slicing through the incantation like glass. But the cloaked figures continued, their faces hidden beneath hoods, their eyes somehow fixed on her. Her heart raced as they turned slightly, their chanting unbroken, their attention drawn by the power she unwittingly wielded. It was a dreadful circle they formed, and she was now a part of it. In that fleeting moment of tension and intensity, Sarah's mind tore at the threads of rational thought. Doubt and panic swirled around her, clinging to her skin. What was she doing? The worship of the baleful sect thrived on fear and chaos. Could she really confront them? With trembling fingers, Sarah reached the altar and grabbed the photograph, sparks of dread exploding in her chest. The faces stared back at her, so full of life and love yet tainted now by this dark congregation. In that instant, the faintest shimmer of determination ignited within her. The chanting wavered, a slight ripple in the sinister soundscape. "You must not disturb the sacrifice." One of the figures growled, their voice laced with malice, slithering through the air like smoke. A hand shot out, gripping her wrist like a vice, cold and unyielding, and Sarah flinched at the contact, feeling icy tendrils snatching at her energy. "Let me go!" She screamed, adrenaline coursing through her veins, fueling her fight. She jerked her arm free, only to feel a wave of hostility crash over her. The room pulsated with an unholy energy, the circle of hooded figures closing in like vultures eyeing their prey, but Sarah had a plan. In desperation, she clutched the photograph to her chest and blurted, "You don't have to do this. I know my parents are here. I can help. Just let them go." The chanting faltered, but only for a heartbeat. It was as if they could sense her fear and it strengthened their resolve. "You cannot help what you do not understand, child," the leader's voice boomed, a thunderous echo that seemed to shake the stone beneath her feet. "No," Sarah declared, planting her feet firmly. "I know more than you think. I won't leave until I know my family is safe." A surge of confidence welled within her. With newfound desperation, she threw the photograph onto the altar. "This is my family. Their love is stronger than you." The air crackled, a churning storm building around them. The flickering candle flames roared higher, and for a brief moment, the sinister chanting dropped to a whisper. The photo's energy felt like light against the gathering darkness, a golf ball shining in the dimming dusk. "Foolish girl," the leader hissed, their eyes narrowing to slits. But a pulse of power surged from the photo, igniting tiny sparks of light that weaved through the air, wrapping around Sarah like a cocoon. She didn't know how, but she felt it, the love, the warmth, the promise of protection resonating through her. Something was working. As the shadows shivered and pulled back, the cloaked figures shifted, visibly shaken. "No!" one cried out, fists clenching. "What are you afraid of?" Sarah dared to challenge, emboldened by the moment. "Is your power greater than love?" Suddenly, it struck her the floor beneath her feet began to vibrate. Cracks spiderwebbed outward, and the candles sputtered, their flames flickering with trepidation. The very ground quaked. Was the house rejecting them? Confusion rippled through the ranks of the sect, then, in the maelstrom of chaos, a burst of blinding light erupted from the altar. Sarah shielded her eyes, feeling warmth flooding her senses just as she felt the very floor drop beneath her. In a split second, she was engulfed in pure light, the chanting now a chaotic cacophony of fear. The last thing she heard before the explosion of energy consumed her was the uncanny shrieks of the cloaked figures, their shadows bleeding into the darkness, and then, silence. When the light faded, Sarah found herself lying on the cold basement floor, her heart pounding as the altar lay in ruins. But where were the sect members? What had happened to the family picture? Panic gripped her once more as she pushed herself up. "Mom? Dad?" She called again into the echoing void, realizing with dread that she still might not have found them. Breathless, she scanned the room, panic merging with determination. The shadows writhed along the edge of her vision, whispering once again, "This is not over." Sarah's stomach lurched as she suddenly felt a presence behind her, dark and familiar. Heart slamming against her ribcage, she turned. But what could it be? The answer loomed behind her, waiting in the shadows, holding a truth that might change everything. A chill raced down Sarah's spine as she turned, her breath hitching in her throat. The dim light didn't illuminate enough to see clearly, but she could sense it, a figure, standing still, watching her. A twisted part of her reminded her of the cloaked sect members, but something about this presence felt different. It felt intimate and, in a way, personal. Who are you? She croaked, her voice hardly audible over the pounding of her heart. The figure moved, stepping from the shadows like a ghost breaking free from ancient chains. As they drew closer, she squinted, searching for recognition. She knew those eyes, deep and filled with an emotion that was too complex to decipher: grief, anger, but also understanding. Sarah, the figure breathed, a familiar voice breaking the haze of fear. Mom. Sarah's voice was a whisper laced with disbelief. At the sound of her name, the figure seemed to crumble, their form wavering as if caught between worlds. I tried to protect you, the woman said, stepping further into the dim light. It was her mother, worn and weary, but undeniably her. Yet, there was something haunting in her mother's gaze, a flicker of knowledge that sent shivers rippling through Sarah. All along, they were waiting. Her mother's voice was shaky, trembling at the edges with fear. You shouldn't have come here. What happened? Sarah demanded, the urgency in her tone growing. She reached out, but the air around them felt charged with something she couldn't quite put her finger on. Where's Dad? Her mother's expression turned grave, shadowed by something darker. He's lost. They took him. I tried to, but they were too strong. Tears formed in her mother's eyes, glimmering with an unbearable sadness. No. Sarah shouted, denial fueling her desperation. With the memory of the photograph still fresh, she gripped her mother's hand tightly. But I found the picture. I thought love could protect us. I thought it worked. Love is powerful, yes, but it can also expose us to deeper dangers, her mother said, her voice heavy with regret. You've awakened something suddenly. The basement trembled, dust cascading from the bricks as the shadows surged again with renewed vigor. The sepulchral whispers rose around them, a cacophony of unseen voices choking the air. It was as if the house itself was mourning, lamenting the chaos that had unfolded in its walls. Mom, what is happening? Sarah cried, her eyes snapping toward the swaying shadows. We need to get out of here. But her mother merely stood rooted, her features fleeting in and out of focus, as if she was part of the oppressive darkness swirling around them. You must be brave, Sarah. You have to finish what was begun. You must face them. Finish what? What are you talking about? Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. Her mother leaned closer, her voice lowering to a strained whisper. The baleful sect. The power of your love opens doors, but their curse binds. The truth you seek is hidden in the light and shadows. Find the altar. Only there can you reclaim what was lost. Before Sarah could respond, the room erupted with a deafening roar of sound, the walls trembling as the shadows thickened. Her mother's figure flickered, nearly dissolving before her eyes. Remember, don't trust what you see. The truth can twist. And just like that, her mother vanished, leaving Sarah screaming into the void of darkness. The shadows surged, swirling in a furious gale around her. They were angry now, and she realized their whispers had sharpened into fervent cries of rage. They weren't done with her yet. She felt them pulling her toward the remnants of the altar, toward the ruins she'd left behind. With a deep inhale, Sarah steeled herself, a fire igniting within her heart. She wouldn't back down. If there was a chance to save her father, to confront these monsters, she had to fight through the fear that threatened to consume her. Determined, she forced her legs to step forward. Each movement was deliberately calculated, as though she were entering a battlefield. As she approached the rubble of the altar, shadows flickered and twisted, forming images that tugged at the remnants of her sanity. Faces emerged, contorted in anguish, and she felt her heart shatter under the weight of despair. Don't let them trap you. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. But as she reached the heart of the ruins, she shivered, feeling the sudden pull of something dark and powerful. Would she really find answers here? Or would this only lead her deeper into the very heart of darkness? As the shadows bellowed incoherently, Sarah braced herself. She was about to uncover a truth that could shatter everything she thought she knew. Just then, a chilling possibility crept into her mind. What if she wasn't meant to save anyone? What if she was the one being saved? And deep down, a question loomed: could she trust herself in a place where reality fractured and fear reigned? The lights flickered, and for an instant, her heart raced at the thought of a secret hidden in the shadows, waiting to be unveiled. The tension was suffocating as Sarah stood at the altar's remnants, heart pounding in her chest. Each shadow flickered menacingly, threatening to swallow her whole. She could feel their cold breath wrapping around her, urging her to retreat, but a simmering courage within her forced her to stay. What had her mother meant by the baleful sect? Familiarity tugged at her mind, but the memories eluded her grasp like grains of sand. She took a shaky step forward, the rubble shifting beneath her feet with an unsettling crunch. The whispered voices intensified, a dissonant choir vibrating through the dimly lit space. "Who are you?" Sarah shouted, desperation clawing at her resolve. "What do you want?" The shadows answered not with words, but with a sudden rush of cold air that swept around her, twisting and swirling like a cyclone of darkness. She squinted, trying to pierce through the murk, but all she could see were shifting shapes, flashes of terror that seemed to draw closer with each breath. "Stop," she whispered, though her heart screamed otherwise. "You don't have to do this. I'm not afraid of you." A laughter, deep and mocking, echoed around her, bouncing off the stone walls. It felt like a physical thing, wrapping tightly around her throat, making it hard to breathe. "Not afraid?" A voice crooned, smooth yet sinister. "But you should be, dear girl. The truth has teeth, and it's hungry." Sarah's stomach dropped as a figure emerged from the depths of the shadows. A man, draped in dark robes, stepped forward, his presence contagious with dread. His face was obscured, but she could feel his hollow gaze boring into her soul. She instinctively took a step back, angering the shadows, which writhed in protest. "Your love has summoned us," he hissed, voice slick with malice. "But love cannot save you from this fate. You are part of the story now, and we hold the pen." The air shimmered around him as if the very fabric of reality was bending beneath the weight of his words. At that moment, the shadowy figures erupted around her, their faces bursting forth from the darkness. Faceless and unworthy were the words that formed on their lips, each syllable an echo of her deepest fears. Sarah's breath quickened, she could feel her mother's warning thrumming through her mind like a beacon: "Don't trust what you see." Gathering her thoughts, she clutched the remnants of a broken stone, its sharp edge grounding her in this chaotic swirl. If she was meant to face them, if this was her role in this unfolding nightmare, she had to be strong. "Just show me," she demanded, voice steadier than she felt. "Show me the truth." The dark figure chuckled again. "Very well," he said, and with a swift motion, he gestured. The shadows parted like a curtain, revealing visions that twisted her heart. She saw flashes of her father, trapped in a world beyond hers, pale and gaunt, eyes wide in terror. Images flickered rapidly: her mother battling unseen forces, love turning into desperation, moments of joy twisted into despair. Each revelation struck her like a dagger, leaving her breathless, pulling her deeper into the dark weave of their sinister reality. The laughter grew louder, surrounding her in a cacophony of madness. "You see. Love doesn't protect, it ensnares," the figure sneered, advancing as shadows clawed at her legs. In that moment of vulnerability, Sarah felt an ember sparking within her. "Maybe you think you control this," she challenged, echoing her mother's words in her mind. "But you do not have my love." With that, she slammed her palm against the altar's fragmented surface. The energy surged through her, igniting a pulse of light as she called on the warmth of what love truly meant: not the lies of devotion that the shadows spun, but the genuine bonds that coursed through her heart. The shadows screamed, thrashing violently against this unexpected force, and the figure faltered, momentarily losing his composure. But at that instant, a flash of the unseen pierced through the chaos: a vision of her father, clearer this time, calling for her, his eyes pleading, filled with hope. "Sarah!" he cried, and the sound echoed in her mind, igniting a fierce determination, but as the shadows recoiled, a new dread threatened to envelop her. What if unleashing this love meant inviting greater danger? Torn between fear and hope, she could feel the ground shifting beneath her once more. The altar trembled, pulsating like a living creature, and the darkness surged, readying for a final confrontation. Would she conquer the shadows that sought to bind her? Or would love alone leave her vulnerable to the abyss? With her heart racing, dollar signs twinkling in her eyes, she prepared for whatever came next, a painful truth or a chance at freedom. As a low, ominous growl filled the air, Sarah steeled herself for what lay ahead. The shadows quivered, and the air thickened with anticipation. The shadows lunged, a tide of darkness crashing over her, and Sarah felt a chill wrap around her spine. The shadows twisted, forming grotesque faces that leered and shouted, a cacophony of mocking laughter tearing at her sanity. "Your love is a weakness." They jeered, their voices 1,000 times over, piercing the air with venomous intensity. Drawing on her resolve, Sarah clenched the stone tighter. This had to be a test. A challenge she wouldn't back down from. The vision of her father, his face worn yet hopeful, ignited a fire within her. She couldn't let the darkness win. She screamed, "I am not afraid. You don't own me." With that proclamation, the ground trembled, and the altar shook fervently beneath her. Bolts of light erupted from her palm, illuminating the scene in a fierce blaze that momentarily banished the shadows. The figures shrieked, their cacophonous mirth turning into a desperate wail as they writhed away from the light like cockroaches scurrying from a flame, but the dark figure stood firmly, unfazed. "You misunderstand, girl. Light is not your savior here. It will be your doom," he said, advancing through the radiance, a dark specter unfurling through the light like smoke. Each step he took diminished the brightness, sucking the warmth from the air, as confidence dripped from his voice. "No. This ends now," Sarah shouted, heart hammering in her chest. As she summoned the energy within her, the altar trembled violently, cracks spiderwebbed across its surface. The ancient stone began to groan, as if awakening. With every heartbeat, she felt its pulse sync with her own. The figure recoiled slightly, a flicker of concern crossing his features. "You think you're strong? You have no idea the power you dabble with," he sneered, yet the tremor in his voice hinted at insecurity, but Sarah didn't falter. She focused, letting the warmth of love flow through her, not the manufactured affection conjured by the darkness but the raw, unyielding bond with her family. She was not a pawn. She was a daughter, a beacon of light thrust into the abyss, determined to bring her loved ones back. "Show me them," she cried, slamming her free hand against the altar again. "Show me the truth." The ground shuddered, and the air shimmered with ethereal light spilling from her palm. The shadows screeched as they were washed away, replaced by images. A cascade of memories soared before her eyes. Her father's laughter, her mother's warm embrace, moments of joy that bloomed in stark contrast against the darkness. Each image was a dagger plunged into the heart of the sinister figure, his form flickering with rage. "You believe love can save you?" His voice twisted, dripping with scorn. "These are mere illusions. Their faces will fade, and you will be left with nothing." "No!" Sarah shouted. "You are the illusion." In that instant, she leaped forward, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. She felt the room's energy shift again, electrifying her veins. With one powerful blow, she smashed the stone onto the altar, and the world exploded in a kaleidoscope of light and shadows battling for dominance. As the brilliance surged around her, she felt the weight of looming darkness press against her. It stung, tearing at her resolve like brambles through flesh, but she held on fiercely, convinced she could break through. In that moment of chaos, an anguished scream of despair echoed, piercing through the din. "Sarah, help us." The chilling cry was unmistakably her father's, and it sent a shiver racing down her spine. "Dad!" She screamed, eyes wide with terror, heart racing. Hers was not the only life at stake. In the midst of this darkness, the very essence of her family was woven into this fate, but with that realization came another chilling question. Who would come to save them all from the shadows? Before she could gather her thoughts, the shadows roared back, more furious than ever, swirling violently as they reformed around her, threatening to pull her under before she could act. "Join us, Sarah," they beckoned, their dreadful promises wrapping around her heart. "Embrace the fate we've written for you." With trembling hands, she braced herself. Was love enough to overcome this sinister force? As darkness loomed once more, and the ground beneath her began to crack wider, she steeled herself for the final clash. Would she yield to despair or rise as a beacon to rescue her father? The chasm of uncertainty opened before her, daring her to leap. The shadows lunged again, thick and suffocating. Sarah felt them tug at her, their cold fingers crawling up her arms. Panic surged through her, but so did determination. She wouldn't let the darkness swallow her whole. She swung her arm, channeling the light into a sweeping arc, cutting through the shadows like a knife. "Get away from me!" she screamed, almost feral in her defiance. The light flickered, a wild flame battling against an encroaching storm. The dark figure laughed, his voice low and resonant. "You're fighting against what is inevitable. Your love, it blinds you. What you cherish most will betray you." "No!" Sarah shouted back, defiance surging within her. "You will never break me." In that instant, the shadows convulsed, twisting into forms that seeped into her memories, dragging her through the vivid remnants of joy and sorrow. Each face from her past was twisted and distorted, each smile turned to a grimace. There was her father, looking lost, her mother, eyes void of hope. "No!" she gasped, the horror of their forms incising pain deep within her. Yet, it ignited a new fire. She thought of all the moments they shared, the laughter, the lessons, the hugs on bad days. They were her shield, and nothing could claim them. The light burst forth brighter, nearly blinding as it enveloped her, illuminating the dark figure, who faltered for the first time. "You think you can save them?" he spat, his voice shaking now, a flash of worry crossing his wicked features. "No one can escape the void." With renewed energy, Sarah pressed her palm against the altar, feeling the pulse resonate deeper with each beat in her heart. "I want to let you take them," she cried, and the ground trembled again, cracking wider beneath her. The dark figure's eyes widened as the ancient stone flared to life, seismic energies rippling through the cracks like veins of power. Images swirled around her, each one brighter than the last. She could see her family, their faces radiating warmth, their love intertwining with her own essence. The shadows shrieked, rage erupting into a deafening sound that shook the very air, but their voices began to fracture. "You'll suffer. You'll regret this defiance." The brightness swelled, and with it came a warmth that filled her chest. It was hope and strength, a testament to the love that could never fade. As Sarah closed her eyes, she envisioned the realm beyond the darkness. A place filled with light, not the facade the dark figure presented, but a true beacon of everything she held dear. "Enough!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the chaos, sharper than any blade. With all her might, she thrust the stone into the cracks of the altar. It plunged deep, triggering a violent explosion of light that flared around her, an aura of pure brilliance that surged against the oppressive shadows. The ground quaked, fissures spreading wider, and she felt the dark figure's anger radiating toward her. "You'll pay for this." But the words were snatched away as the darkness recoiled, shrinking back, disintegrating into shrill cries that echoed against the walls of despair. And in that blinding radiance hope soared high. Sarah's heart raced as she felt her father South's presence close, felt his love bridging the abyss. "Hold on, Dad!" she yelled, hope driving each word like a lifeline. "I'm coming." But as the shadows began to dissolve, a flicker of doubt crept in. Had she truly broken the spell, or was this merely the calm before a greater storm? The altar pulsated with raw energy, and an unexpected tremor coursed through the ground, setting her feet unsteady. In that moment, a gut-wrenching realization hit her. The dark figure's laughter echoed ominously through the remaining shadows. "You think this battle is over? The true darkness has yet to come, and you'll soon regret your defiance." Just when she thought she'd caught a glimpse of victory, the atmosphere shifted, heavy and foreboding. Sarah felt the shadows converge once more, twisting into a whirling vortex around her. What new terror awaited her? Would she be emerging as the victor, or was she stepping deeper into a trap? The oppressive darkness rolled like thunder, poised to strike as her heart raced. The shadows whispered once more, weaving their dark promises. You'll never save them, and at that chilling moment, the light flickered, threatening to extinguish. Would she be consumed by the very shadows she fought against? The choice before her was grave, a leap into the unknown. And with her family's lives hanging in the balance, Sarah had to decide: face the darkness again or risk it all to follow the light. The question loomed: would salvation come at a cost she could afford? The shadows spiraled tighter, an assaulting tempest of darkness that clawed at Sarah's resolve. The air rumbled around her, heavy with the weight of despair. You're too late. Too weak. The dark figure taunted, his eyes gleaming with malice. He stepped closer, emerging from the vortex, his form twisting like the shadows that birthed him. Sarah's heart pounded, each beat a desperate call to the hands of fate. I won to let you win. She shouted, each word resolute, her light flickering but unyielding. She could feel her father's spirit still near, bolstering her with silent strength, and that thought ignited a flame deep within her. Suddenly, the swirling darkness parted like a curtain, revealing twisted memories that had been stifled in the shadows, her childhood laughter, the warmth of familial hugs, birthdays filled with light. Yet, they morphed and twisted, their edges darkening, becoming echoes of despair. Look closer, Sarah, the dark figure hissed. This is what you are fighting for. A warped illusion. They're tarnished, just as you'll be. A chill ran down Sarah's spine as the memories shifted to darker times: arguments, tears, loss, all bolstering a tight knot of fear in her chest. It was as if the darkness was peeling away her identity, exposing her vulnerability. Stop! She screamed, shaking her head violently. But the memories pressed harder, pulling her deeper into despair, wrapping her in chains of regret and doubt. You can't let this in. But the shadows gripped tighter, their icy tendrils making her arms feel heavy. She felt her breath hitch, the ground shifting beneath her feet like quicksand. You're losing yourself, Sarah. You can't protect them if you can't even protect yourself. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. She was not just defending her family, she was fighting for her own spirit. No. She gasped, deep down knowing that she was more than her fears. With a surge of defiance, she thought about the love she had for her family, a love that was unwavering, a flicker of light even in the darkest moments. She had to channel that. They're more than memories. They're my strength. She shouted, directing all her energy again toward the altar. The stone throbbed against her palm, responding to her fierce will. Light burst forth, a visceral explosion that momentarily blinded her. The shadows screeched in outrage, writhing as the tendrils slackened their grasp, melting away with each pulse of her intention. The vibrant burst of energy sent a shockwave through the air, forcing the dark figure back. But even as he spluttered against the brightness, his malevolence transformed into something more sinister. This isn't over, child. You think you can cast me away? I will return. Sarah felt a tremor of fear as the shadows curled back around him, whispering dreadful promises. You'll never be alone. She was now engulfed in brilliance, standing at the brink of something monumental, but doubt nestled deep within her. Could her light truly extinguish the darkness? Each flicker from within felt like a fragile flame against an impending storm. Just when the energy seemed to rise, crackling with potential, the ground beneath her feet surged again. Sarah stumbled, aware of the impending danger, her pulse racing wildly. The altar undulated, and shadows clawed at the edges of her vision. With every heartbeat, she sensed the dark figure's presence clawing its way back. The atmosphere thickened, an electric charge of impending doom. Prepare for what's to come, Sarah. You'll need all your light to confront what I unleash. Her eyes widened, heart thumping in her throat, as reality blurred and the shadows shifted. The structure around her began to quiver violently, a countdown to something both catastrophic and terrifying. Desperation surged in her chest. The shadows were swirling again, weaving a dissonant chorus of anguish. Would she truly be ready for whatever darkness lay ahead? As she steadied herself, a chilling whisper slid through the air, "Your battle has just begun." What awaited her in this relentless war against despair? What terror loomed just beyond the horizon, ready to ensnare her once more? The question lingered, an echo in the burgeoning darkness. The ground trembled beneath Sarah's feet, sending a jolt of panic up her spine. It felt as if the very earth was aware of the darkness encroaching around her. The shadows crept closer, threatening to snuff out the flicker of light she had managed to muster. "What are you planning?" she shouted, trying to mask her fear with bravado. The dark figure laughed, a sound that echoed ominously through the chamber. "You cannot fathom the depths of my power," he hissed, looming larger as the shadows thickened around him. His eyes blazed like smoldering coals in a dying fire. "I will unleash your deepest fears, and you will witness your greatest failures." Sarah clenched her fists, every ounce of determination surging through her. "Bring it on. I won't back down." As the figure snapped his fingers, shadows erupted into a chaotic storm, swirling around her like a vortex of despair. She felt the weight of every regret, every moment of self-doubt crash over her. Memories threatened to drown her, failing her family, her father's disappointed gaze, all those times she had felt inadequate. A knot twisted in her stomach, tightening with each passing second. "Remember this?" The dark figure beckoned, and the air shifted. Suddenly, she stood in a memory, a painful echo of the past. She was a child again, lost in a crowd, desperately searching for her father. The echoes of laughter and shouts surrounded her, but all she felt was isolation and fear. "Daddy!" she called out, her own voice small and trembling. The shadows crept in closer, whispering taunts. "You're all alone, little girl lost forever." "No!" she cried, fighting against the rising tide of sorrow overwhelming her. In that moment, she remembered the love, the warmth, the unwavering support her family had given her. She recalled the times they had fought together, not just against darkness but against the tumult of life itself. "Love is my strength," Sarah shouted, her voice piercing through the dark whispers. She held on tightly to that truth, letting it radiate through her. The shadows recoiled, hissing, as the light within her flared brighter. The figure's face twisted in fury. "You think that will save you? I'll show you darkness like you've never known." With a snap of his fingers, the ground shimmered and warped. The walls around her melted away, revealing not just her darkest memories but an endless pit of despair. She was drawn to its edge, looking down into the abyss. It beckoned, promising release, promising an end to the pain, but Sarah stood resolute. She gasped as a chilling breeze swept through the void, and a voice echoed from within. "You are not enough." "No!" she yelled into the darkness. "I am enough. My love, my family, they make me whole." The pit surged with shadows, raging against her declaration. The winds howled, and a cold chill ran through her bones. "You think love can conquer this? What about the lies? The betrayals?" Sarah's heart raced. It felt so real, the weight of those words striking deep. But deep down, a fuse ignited. "I know the truth. My love can drive you out." The shadows whipped and surged, howling with rage as she thrust her hands forward. Light burst from her fingertips, cutting through the oppressive darkness. For a moment, the shadows vanished, and she stood alone in a blinding brightness, but as the radiance pulsed around her, she felt a sudden pull of force tugging her back towards the pit of despair. The dark figure, now more monstrous than before, loomed above her, rage and madness swirling in his eyes. "You think you've won? This is only the beginning." With the force of chaos swirling around her, Sarah's mind raced. She felt the tendrils of fear gripping her once more, but she knew she had a choice to make. Could she confront the grotesque truth of her past? Would her light be enough to hold back the darker tides of despair? As the shadows began to coalesce again, flaring around her like a serpent ready to strike, Sarah was aware. The struggle was far from over. She could feel the darkness thrumming at the edges of her consciousness, relentless in its pursuit. What lay beneath this upheaval? What deceits would unravel next? The whirlwind continued, a storm not just of shadows but of her own making. As she prepared to face the depths of her fears, she wondered, would this fight lead to salvation, or would she be consumed by the very darkness she sought to banish? With a roar that filled the chamber, the shadows surged forward, a tempest of darkness eager to drown Sarah in despair. Each whisper curled around her, suffocating and relentless. Yet amidst the chaos, a flicker of light ignited within her the unwavering belief in love. "I am not afraid. You can't take me," she shouted, grounding herself amid the storm, her resolve fortifying like steel. The dark figure loomed closer, still a twisted nightmare in form but now faltering, shaken by her defiance. "You think that feeble light protects you? It only exposes you more," he hissed, the air growing colder around him, but Sarah was no longer daunted by fear. She pushed against the shadows, each wave crashing around her as she declared, "Love is strength. I can see the truth now." She could feel the warmth of her family's love for her. It glimmered, bold and fierce, slicing through the darkness. "Have you forgotten your failures?" the figure howled, snapping his fingers. As he did, visions erupted around her childhood, moments of despair, her father's disappointed gaze. Each scene played out like a tapestry of pain, trying to choke her will. "You're nothing without them," he rasped, shadows swirling violently, wrapping tighter. "No." Sarah gritted her teeth, recalling the laughter, the joy that steadied her breath. "I am more than this." With a deep breath, she summoned the very essence of love, the bond that tethered her to her family. The memories surged together, forming a luminous shield that pushed against the shadows. The dark figure recoiled as her light illuminated the chamber, each pulse pushing back the gloom, but he laughed, trying to mask his fear. "You can't hold that light forever, it will fade, and when it does, you will be mine." "Not today," she screamed, thrusting her hands forward. A white-hot beam exploded from her core, engulfing the space in blinding light. The shadows writhed, pulling back in anguish, their ghostly wails echoing through the chamber. For a moment, she felt invincible. The walls of darkness buckled under the intensity of her love, creating sanctuary, yet just as quickly, the dazzling radiance flickered. Shivers of doubt threatened to curl around her heart, and she stumbled, the fear creeping back in. "No. I won't let it change me," she shouted, shaking off the grip of despair. In that moment, the dark figure's true form unfolded before her. He was the embodiment of her deepest fears, the twisted reflections of her insecurities that loomed large in her life. And she recognized him. "You're not real," she all but shouted, feeling empowered, realizing the shadows thrived on her weaknesses. As reality twisted, she focused harder. "You are just a shadow of what I've faced. You do not own me." With determination, she confronted the illusions, her heart soaring at the realization of strength growing within her. At that moment, thick shadows surged forward, trying to claw at her confidence, but she countered by reflecting a radiant warmth back at them. "I will stand my ground," she proclaimed, her voice steady as the air rippled with energy. The dark figure screamed, the sound rupturing the silence, "Your foolishness will be your undoing." But Sarah held her ground, channeling love and strength until it throbbed in the air. She broke through the echoes of doubt, feeling lighter by the second. As she faced him, their gazes locked, and she summoned every ounce of love she had ever felt. The shadows writhed, twisting violently as she pressed on, calling to her parents, feeling their presence push her forward. "I know you're with me," she yelled, unleashing a pulse of brilliance. With a sudden surge, the shadows shattered in a kaleidoscope of light, fracturing into streams of silver dust. For the first time, she felt the dark figure falter, his confidence crumbling. "No. This cannot be," he screamed as he disintegrated into wisps of terror, evaporating into the air. Sarah stood breathless, a deep ache flooding through her. She felt stronger, yet there was a hollow silence around her. Her father had called to her, his voice reverberating even now. She knew their bond had not been severed. Heart racing, she gazed into the dwindling light of the altar, still pulsing with energy. "Dad!" she cried, reaching forward. "I'm here. I'll find you." A renewed sense of purpose surged through her as she prepared to uncover what lay beyond the veil. This wasn't merely a victory, it was the beginning of a journey toward reclaiming her family. The shadows were retreating, but she could sense remnants stirring. "I will break this curse," she vowed, stepping toward the remnants of the altar. There lay a shimmering light, and for the first time, hope sparkled through despair. "Let us end this," Sarah declared, knowing she had transformed fear into courage. With one final surge of determination, she thrust her hand into the light, calling out, "Together, we will rise." And in that moment of radiant brilliance, she felt a bond unbreakable, a love that would guide her through the depths and into the dawn of a new ending. As the light consumed her, she realized the battle was not merely against darkness but for the redemption of her family and the essence of love itself. Time unfolded anew, and as darkness finally dissipated, a voice echoed softly in the distance, "We are with you, together always." And with that, light flooded her vision. She was not alone. The nightmares of Maplewood had been faced, and the horrors of the past were laid to rest. It was time for healing and rebirth. With a renewed spirit, she emerged from shadows into a world ablaze with sunlight, a palpable sense of relief washing over her. The dawn had broken at last. Now, dear friend, this is your moment to embrace the story's journey. If you felt every heartbeat, every flicker of light, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the uncharted adventures ahead. Smash that like button now to feed our storytelling flame and shade this channel with love. Flood the comments section with your thoughts. How do you feel about Sarah's extraordinary battle? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this epic conclusion. Your support is the lifeblood of our community.